there's a lot of people out there who want to get back to work, you know, to do their own thing, and I think nursery just provide, you know, a stimulating and caring environment.
Today, more and more children are spending more and more time at younger and younger ages in non-maternal care arrangements. I think we have reason to be concerned.
I don't think we should be unduly concerned about children spending time in daycare, but I do think we need to be informed about what the effects of daycare are.
So what are the effects of this explosion of daycare on children's development? In the last 2 decades, the number of children in daycare has trebled, giving rise to one of the most controversial debates, both in contemporary society and in psychology. More and more mothers are now expected to go back to work, but at the same time they're made to feel guilty about neglecting their children. So what should parents be doing in their children's best interests?
It does leave marks on us. If we've had a happy childhood and loving relationships, then I think it's given us a secure foundation on which we then build. I think you've got to be loved to be able to give love to others.
Central to all this is the concept of attachment.
Attachment is defined as the affectional or emotional bond that an infant and even young child forms or establishes with their principal caregiver or caregivers. So it's really a love tie. A baby is in love with his or her mother or father or child care provider.
Bobby believed that emotional care was important for development as important for development as physical care. Bobby argued that breaking the paternal bond with a child during the early years was likely to have serious effects on the intellectual, social and emotional development. He argued that a child would have difficulty forming relationships with other people and would be at risk to developing behavioural disorders. He claimed these effects were irreversible and permanent, and they would occur if separation would become, if this happened before the age of about 2.5 years, but there is still a risk up until about 5 years old.
Yeah.
Australian research which found babies who start childcare at a young age suffer no ill effects. The study tracked the behaviour of 2- and 3-year-old children, found no major differences between those children who'd been cared for at home and those who'd been in childcare.
If parents don't have time to provide much in the way of learning experiences or don't know how to, then some children will reap intellectual benefits of attending an early childhood service with adults who know how to do these things. All children are likely to benefit in their language development from being with lots of other people. However, babies who are not mobile and children who are quiet or non-demanding may get a lot less attention and talk than they do at home. Their language development will be disadvantaged by being in group care unless the centre staff are really onto providing lots of interaction, as you would normally see between a child and his or her parent. Too much time in childcare can be bad for parent-child relationships because new parents can struggle to develop their parenting skills. Space in centres can be noisy and crowded. Imagine 40 or more children plus adults in a building that's no bigger than an average 3-bedroom home. For children attending only a few hours a day, this is not too much of a problem. But for children attending longer, or with special needs such as autism, noise levels and the stress of being with lots of other people can have long-term consequences.
Through a variety of current experiments based on the strange situation used by psychologist Mary Ainsworth in the 1960s, it is now devastatingly clear that when babies are placed in other-than-mother care during the first year of life, even good quality care, quote, about 50% are insecurely attached to their mothers. Ainsworth's technique was to ask mothers to leave their children in a room with a total stranger, abruptly and without explanation to the child, the strange situation, and then reappear some minutes later. The results were decisive. During the mother's sudden absence and on her reappearance, the children demonstrated clear differences in attachment, ranging from callous indifference and anger to joy on reuniting. Pennsylvania State University's Jay Belsky, who formerly argued for the harmlessness of daycare, now says that daycare erodes a child's sense of trust and order in the world. And Belsky, Barglow, and others argue that when mothers leave infants in daycare, especially for more than 20 hours each week, children read this as parental rejection. The point here is that extensive daycare serves to restructure the mother-infant relationship. If widespread, it may dangerously restructure society itself. A clear sense of the problem can be grasped from the turnover rates of childcare workers between 40 and 60% per year. Attachment is impossible under such circumstances.
Out of the 196 countries worldwide, there are 7 countries who don't have laws requiring paid maternity leave. Suriname, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Papua New Guinea, Tonga, the United States of America, Palau. Wait, what? Oh, that's right. The good old US of A is the only developed country in the world that doesn't provide new parents with any financial assistance. Sure, there are some companies who have paid leave benefits, but they're few and far between. According to a study from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 11% of women who work at private companies receive paid leave. So what does the US provide? The US government provides 12 weeks unpaid maternity leave with job security. So they do offer something. Except there are strict requirements you must meet in order to get this benefit. And currently, 40% of women do not even qualify for unpaid maternity leave. But the US isn't alone on this, right? How far behind the rest of the world could the US really be? Oh. Well, at least
in terms of among developed nations, we spend 2/3 less on early childhood education than most developed countries in the world. We should be farther along. The thing is that the United States places a lot of emphasis, I think, on, making money, on capitalism, and instead of placing that emphasis on the family. In developing countries, they realize that an investment in women is an investment in children, and an investment in children is the future. So you have
basically. A problem with research in this area is that there's many contradictory findings, but perhaps this is not surprising, as there are so many factors that may influence a child's development apart from daycare. What the child's family is like at home, daycare itself is very different quality, time spent in daycare, the age of starting daycare, and etc., etc.
The county's Department of Health has received a financial boost to its child care subsidy, which assists working parents with funds for daycare. Lorna Virgili brings us the details.
What did you buy first?
Single parents with children under the age of 13 can now apply for the Working Parent Child Care Subsidy Program. The Department of Health and Human Services has additional funding received during the fiscal year 2014 that desperately needs to pass on to needy families.